Aries, 12 lessons that turn into wins with time. Every Aries carries a library of lessons. Some were learned gently, through observation and quiet reflection. But most were learned the hard way. Through failure, through loss, through the kind of bone-deep disappointment that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world. And in the moment, those lessons felt like defeats. They felt like proof that something was wrong, that you had made a mistake, that the universe was working against you instead of for you. But time has a way of revealing what the moment could not. Time shows you that the lesson was never the punishment. It was the preparation. And what felt like your worst loss was actually your greatest win, waiting patiently for you to see it from the right angle. Today we are going to walk through 12 of those lessons. The ones that hurt, the ones that shaped you, the ones that, with the passage of years and the clarity of hindsight, turned into the very strengths, skills, and wisdom that define who you are today. Lesson 1. The first lesson is that not everyone who leaves is a loss. When it happened, it felt catastrophic. Someone you loved, someone you trusted, someone you thought would be there forever, walked away. And the pain of their departure consumed you. You replayed every conversation, wondering what you could have said differently. You examined every moment, searching for the flaw that drove them away. You blamed yourself. You blamed them. You blamed the stars. But here is what time has taught you, Aries. Their leaving was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of a chapter that could not have been written while they were still in the room. Their presence, as beloved as it was occupying space that needed to be cleared. Not because they were bad or wrong or unworthy, but because the version of your life that included them had reached its conclusion. And the version that was waiting to begin needed room to breathe. Look at your life now. Look at the people who filled the space they left. Look at the growth that happened in their absence. Look at the strength you developed because you had no choice but to stand on your own. That strength, that growth, those people. None of them could have arrived while the old chapter was still running. The departure you grieved was the doorway to everything that came after. And that doorway, painful as it was to walk through, led you to exactly where you needed to be. Lesson 2. The second lesson is that failure is instruction, not identity. You have failed, Aries. Spectacularly. Publicly. In ways that made you want to disappear, to start over somewhere no one knew your name, to erase the evidence that you had ever tried at all. And in those moments of failure, the temptation was to define yourself by the collapse. To look in the mirror and see not a person who tried and fell, but a person who was fundamentally incapable. A fraud. A pretender. Someone who reached too high and was punished for their ambition. But that is not what failure means. Failure is not a verdict. It is a lesson. It is the universe saying, not this way, try another. It is the course correction that only comes from attempting something real and discovering, through experience, what does not work. Every successful person you have ever admired failed their way to where they are. They just kept going. They did not let the failure become the final word. And neither did you, Aries, because you are still here. You are still trying. You are still reaching. And every failure you survived added a layer of knowledge, of resilience, of tactical intelligence that no success could ever have provided. Your failures did not define you. They refined you. They burned away the approaches that did not work and left you with the ones that do. And the wins that came after, the ones built on the ashes of your defeats, are stronger than any victory that came easily. Lesson 3. The third lesson is that saying no is an act of self-preservation, not selfishness. For years you said yes to everything. Every request, every invitation, every demand on your time, your energy, your attention, because saying no felt wrong. It felt like you were letting people down, closing doors, being difficult or ungrateful. And so you stretched yourself thin. You gave until there was nothing left. You showed up for everyone else while slowly, silently abandoning yourself. And then something broke. Maybe your health, maybe your spirit, maybe a relationship that could not survive the weight of your overcommitment. And in that breaking, you learned a lesson that saved your life. You learned that every yes to something that drains you is a no to something that nourishes you. You learned that boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They let in what feeds your fire and keep out what extinguishes it. You learned that the people who truly love you do not want you to sacrifice yourself for their comfort. They want you whole. They want you present. They want the version of you that has enough left to actually enjoy the time you spend together. Saying no did not make you selfish, Aries. It made you sustainable. It made you reliable. Because the person who protects their energy can show up with genuine presence and care. The person who says yes to everything shows up exhausted, resentful, and half-present. And half-present for an Aries is worse than absent. Lesson 4. The fourth lesson is that the opinions of others are reflections, not realities. You spent years absorbing what people said about you. Their judgments, their assessments, their casual observations that landed like daggers because you gave them the weight of truth. Someone said you were too intense, and you believed you needed to dim your light. Someone said you were too emotional, and you believed you needed to suppress your feelings. Someone said you were too ambitious, and you believed you needed to shrink your dreams to fit their comfort zone. But time has shown you something crucial. What people say about you says more about them than it does about you. Their opinions are filtered through their own fears, their own insecurities, their own limitations. When someone calls you too much, what they are really saying is that you exceed their capacity. And that is not your problem. That is theirs. This lesson transforms everything once it truly lands. Because you stop adjusting yourself to fit other people's mirrors. You stop dimming your fire because it makes someone else uncomfortable. You stop apologizing for the very qualities that make you extraordinary. And instead you start trusting your own reflection. The one that looks back at you and says, "You are not too much. You are exactly enough." And the people who cannot handle your flame need a smaller fire, not a less authentic you. Lesson 5. The fifth lesson is that patience multiplies everything. This one took years to learn, and honestly it is still a work in progress. Because patience does not come naturally to an Aries. You want results now. You want progress today. You want to see the fruits of your labor before the seeds have even had time to sprout. And that urgency, while powerful, has cost you. Relationships that needed time to develop were abandoned because they did not move fast enough. Investments that needed time to mature were sold too early because you could not stand the waiting. Projects that needed time to find their audience were scrapped because the initial response was not what you hoped. But the wins that came from patience, those were different. Those were deeper. Those were the ones that lasted. The relationship you gave time to eventually became your anchor. The project you stuck with past the frustrating middle eventually became your proudest achievement. The investment you held on to past the anxiety eventually returned more than you imagined. Patience does not dilute your fire, Aries. Concentrates it. It takes the same energy you would have scattered across 10 impulsive actions and focuses it on one sustained effort. And that focus, combined with time, creates results that urgency alone could never achieve. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Lesson 6. The sixth lesson is that vulnerability attracts what armor repels. You built your armor young. You had to. The world came at you hard, and you needed something to protect the soft, tender, deeply feeling parts of yourself that the world seemed determined to exploit. And the armor worked. Kept you safe. Kept you standing. It kept the pain at a distance where it could be managed instead of felt. But it also kept other things at a distance. Love. Intimacy. The kind of deep, soul-level connection that can only happen when two people are willing to show each other their unprotected selves. For years, you wondered why your relationship stayed on the surface. Why people admired you but did not know you. Why you could fill a room with your presence but still feel alone in a crowd. And eventually, reluctantly, you began to see. It was the armor. Not because it was wrong to have built it, but because the threats it was designed to protect you from no longer existed. The dangers of your past were past. And the armor that once saved you was now imprisoning you. The first time you took a piece of it off, it was terrifying. You felt exposed. Naked. Like anything could hurt you. But then something unexpected happened. Someone moved closer instead of pulling away. Someone met your honesty with their own. Someone saw the real you and did not flinch. That moment, that single moment of mutual vulnerability, was worth more than a lifetime of armored safety. And it taught you a lesson you will carry forever. The things you want most, love, connection, belonging, are only available to the unprotected heart. Not because they require weakness, but because they require trust. And trust, Aries, begins with the courage to let yourself be seen. Lesson 7. The seventh lesson is that comparison is the fastest way to lose yourself. You have measured yourself against others more times than you can count. Their achievements, their appearances, their apparent ease, their curated images of a life that always seemed more polished, more successful, more together than your own. And every time you measured, you came up short. Not because you were lacking, but because comparison is a rigged game. You were comparing your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. Your chapter 12 with their chapter 1. Your reel with their performance. And the more you compared, the further you drifted from your own path. Because comparison does not just steal your joy, steals your direction. When you are focused on where someone else is, you lose sight of where you are going. When you are measuring your progress against someone else's timeline, you forget that your journey has its own rhythm, its own pace, its own destination. The win that came from this lesson is the win of self-ownership. The ability to walk your path without looking sideways. The confidence to measure your progress not against the world, but against who you were yesterday. The freedom to celebrate someone else's success without diminishing your own. That freedom, Aries, is one of the most valuable things you will ever possess. Because it means you are no longer running someone else's race. You are running yours. At your pace. On your terms. Toward a finish line that only you can define. Lesson 8. The eighth lesson is that rest is not a reward for hard work. It is a requirement for sustainable living. You used to treat rest like something you had to earn. Like a prize that only came after sufficient suffering, sufficient output, sufficient proof that you had pushed yourself hard enough to deserve a break. And so you burned. You burned hot and bright and relentless, and you called it dedication. You called it drive. You called it the Aries way. But what you were really calling it, without knowing it, was self-destruction. Because a fire that never rests eventually runs out of fuel. A body that never stops eventually stops on its own, usually at the worst possible time. And a spirit that never pauses to replenish eventually becomes hollow. Loud but empty. Active but lifeless. The lesson came the hard way, as it often does with Aries. A collapse. A breakdown. A moment where your body or your mind simply refused to continue at the pace you had been demanding. And in that forced stillness, in that unwanted pause, you discovered something you never would have found in motion. You discovered that rest is where the real work happens, where the body heals, where the mind integrates, where the creative well refills, where the fire gathers heat for its next blaze. Now you know, rest is not laziness. Rest is not defeat. Rest is the most productive thing a fire sign can do. Because the Aries who rests well burns brighter, longer, and with a warmth that does not consume but sustains. Lesson 9. The ninth lesson is that asking for help is a sign of intelligence, not weakness. You resisted this one for years, decades, maybe your entire life up until very recently, because asking for help meant admitting you could not handle something on your own. And for an Aries, that admission felt like failure, like proof that you were not as strong as you appeared, not as capable as you projected, not as independent as you needed the world to believe. But the lesson that time delivered was far more nuanced than your pride wanted to accept. The strongest people you know, the ones who have built the most, achieved the most, endured the most, all have one thing in common. They know when to ask for help. They know that no great achievement was ever accomplished in complete isolation. They know that collaboration is not a concession but a multiplication. When you finally allowed yourself to ask for help, the result was not weakness. It was acceleration. Things that had taken you months alone took weeks with support. Problems that had seemed unsolvable dissolved when another perspective was applied. Weight that had been crushing you became manageable when shared across more shoulders. And the relationships that formed through that mutual support became some of the deepest and most nourishing connections of your life. Because helping and being helped creates a bond that surface-level interaction never can. It creates trust, creates intimacy. It creates the kind of mutual respect that comes from seeing someone struggle and choosing to walk beside them. You did not lose your independence by asking for help, Aries. You gained something better. You gained partnership. And partnership, for a fire sign who has been burning alone for too long, is the oxygen that makes the flame leap higher than it ever could on its own. Lesson 10. The 10th lesson is that the hardest seasons produce the deepest roots. There were years in your life that you would not wish on anyone. Seasons of loss, of confusion, of grinding, relentless difficulty that tested every fiber of your being. You wondered during those times if you would survive them, if the pressure would crush you, if the darkness would ever lift. And looking back now, those were the years that made you. Not the easy years. Not the comfortable years. Not the years where everything went according to plan and life felt smooth and predictable. The hard years. The impossible years. The years that forged you in fire and shaped you into someone who cannot be easily broken. Because roots do not grow in soft soil. They grow in resistance. They push through rock. They fight for water. They anchor themselves in the most hostile conditions because survival demands it. And the roots you grew during your hardest seasons are the reason you stand as tall as you do today. They are the reason you can face uncertainty without panic. They are the reason your confidence is not fragile because it was not built on success. It was built on survival, on endurance, on the bone-deep knowledge that you have already faced the worst and you are still here. Some people watch, others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting, it's about moving. Lesson 11. The 11th lesson is that love given freely is never wasted. You have loved people who did not love you back. You have poured your heart into relationships that ended. You have given your care, your attention, your loyalty to people who ultimately did not deserve it. And in the aftermath, you may have felt like that love was wasted, thrown into a void, given to someone who could never appreciate its value. But love, Aries, does not work like a transaction. It does not require a return to have value. Every act of love you ever extended changed you. It made you more compassionate, more courageous, more capable of the kind of deep, unconditional giving that most people only dream about. The love you gave to people who did not reciprocate was not lost. It was absorbed by the universe, by the atmosphere of your life, by the version of you that was being shaped by every act of generosity, every moment of tenderness, every time you chose love over protection and gave your heart even when there was no guarantee it would be received. That willingness to love despite the risk is not naivety, Aries. It is your superpower. It is the thing that makes your relationships, when they do work, extraordinarily deep. Because you do not love cautiously. You do not love strategically. You love the way fire burns. Completely. Intensely. Without reservation. And while that intensity can lead to pain, it also leads to connection that most people never experience. The kind of connection that changes both people. The kind of connection that leaves a mark on the soul. The kind of connection that reminds you every time it happens why you chose to keep your heart open when closing it would have been so much easier. Lesson 12. The 12th lesson is that your life, exactly as it has been, was exactly what it needed to be. This is the hardest lesson of all. Not because it is complicated, but because accepting it requires you to let go of every regret, every what if, every alternate timeline you have imagined where things turned out differently. It requires you to look at the life you actually lived with all its imperfections and detours and painful surprises and say, this was right. Not easy. Not painless. Not what I planned. But right. Every wrong turn taught you something you could not have learned any other way. Every mistake led you to a person, a place, or a realization that would not have existed on the straighter path. Every heartbreak expanded your capacity for love. Every failure deepened your understanding of success. Every moment of darkness made you more grateful for the light. Your life was not random, Aries. It was curated. Not by luck or fate or some external hand, but by your own spirit, making the choices it needed to make to grow in the ways it needed to grow. And the result of all that choosing, all that growing, all that burning and rebuilding and burning again is you. Exactly as you are right now. Standing in this moment with more wisdom, more strength, more love, and more fire than you have ever carried. That is not an accident. That is a masterpiece. Built one lesson at a time. One win at a time. One heartbreak at a time. Until the picture became clear enough to see. And what the picture shows, Aries, is someone who was never defeated by life. Someone who was always being prepared by it. For this. For now. For everything that is still to come. 12 lessons, Aries. 12 chapters of pain that time transformed into power. And the most remarkable thing about this list is not the lessons themselves. It is the fact that you survived them. That you did not just survive them but integrated them. You took the hardest things life could throw at you and turned them into the pillars of who you are. That is not luck. That is not coincidence. That is the Aries spirit at its absolute finest. The spirit that does not just endure the fire but uses it. The spirit that does not just survive the storm but learns to dance in it. The spirit that looks back at every wound and sees not a scar, but a medal. Earned. Deserved. Worn with a pride that nothing and no one can diminish. The lessons are not over, Aries. There are more to come, and some of them will hurt. But now you know something you did not know when you were younger. You know that the hurt is temporary. You know that the lesson is permanent. And you know with absolute certainty that whatever comes next, you will turn it into a win. Because that is what you do. That is who you are. And that is who you will always be. You have two options after this video. Close it and hope things shift. Or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are.